Hello, and welcome to the Linden Oaks Parent Series. I am Christine Hanley with the Linden Oaks Marketing Department. Today's webinar is We're in This Together, Understanding Codependency and the Family's Role in Addiction Recovery. If you have any questions at any point throughout the presentation, select the chat icon in the gray toolbar and ask your question. Our speaker will answer your questions during the Q&A session later today. After the presentation today, we will ask you to fill out a short evaluation on the speaker. The evaluation will open in the polling section on the right-hand side of your screen. As a reminder, the poll is open for 5 minutes. Upon the 5 minutes, the poll will automatically close. If you're interested in attending additional upcoming webinars, visit ehealth.org/services/behavioral health/news and events, parents education for upcoming dates and times. You can see the QR code in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You can also click on that. Our next webinar is July 19th. The topic is Hard to Swallow, Medication Safety and the Importance of Adhering, and our speaker is Sam Epley. Here at Linden Oaks, we treat age 12 and up, adolescent, adults, and seniors, anywhere from depression, anxiety, addiction, substance misuse, eating disorders, PTSD, and trauma, along with many other mental health concerns such as personality disorders, self-injury, grief, loss, anger management. We do assessments for adolescents 12 to 18, along with adults 18 and up. Our levels of care include outpatient therapy, medication management, hospital-based inpatient, and day programs. We have several Linden Oaks locations. We have our Naperville outpatient location. We have our Plainfield outpatient location, St. Charles, Mokina, Hinsdale, and Woodridge, along with our inpatient location on the back-end campus of our Edward site in downtown Naperville. We accept most PPOs and HMO insurances, along with Medicaid All Kids with anyone under age 21. We have a list here. If you do not see yours listed, you can always call our assessment and referral at 630-305-5027 to find out if your insurance is taken. Are you or someone you know feeling anxious or depressed? Mental health conditions are highly treatable, but many do not seek treatment. This can lead to issues with school, family, substance use, and even thoughts of harm. For support, treatment, or therapy resources and/or information, or even a health assessment, you can call our 24/7 health hotline at 630-305-5027. You can also complete an online behavioral health form by clicking on the QR code to the left. Looking for more information, you can take a 5-minute aware test to gauge your mental health at ehealth.org/health-aware. We have anxiety aware, we have depression aware, addiction aware. We have a new program announcement starting as early as July 10th. We have an emerging adult program, ages between 18 and 25. That is somebody that is a college student, a recent high school graduate, students who recently dropped out of school, students taking medical leave, young adults struggling with establishing a job, a career, school, or struggling to create a sense of independence from their family, young adults seeking direction in their life. You can contact our Assessment and Referral Center at 630-305-5027 to learn more. So I'd like to introduce Rasa. She will be presenting again on understanding codependencies and families' roles. Welcome, Rasa.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Our topic today is understanding codependency and family roles. I am a clinical therapist here at Linden Oaks. I've been here for over 2 years, primarily working in the CD dual department. I have history with working with adolescents and family programs. So this topic is close to me. I encourage everyone that has the ability to use the chat box with any questions. I want to make this as much interactive as we possibly can. If you're identifying with any roles that we begin talking about, family roles and family rules. If you mind sharing, please do so in the chat box. Then we will talk about codependency and how that plays a role in dysfunctional family settings. And then we'll provide with some recovery and resources and kind of a skill that we will go over with just to kind of give you something to take home from this. So yeah, let's begin. In this presentation, I use chemical dependency as an example of a family illness, whether it's alcoholism, drug addiction. However, we can substitute that with anything, with a process addiction like gambling has been increasing lately. We can substitute with mental illness. We can substitute that like depression, for example. We can substitute the word alcoholism or drug addiction with trauma, past trauma, anything that a parent or a child might be dealing with. All of those situations are difficult. All of those situations have the victim or the person that is struggling with that blank, whatever you're relating to, whether it's an addiction, alcoholism, trauma, mental health. It still affects how the entire family system functions. It distracts us from kind of the healthy relationships. It makes it a little bit difficult to form attachments, and therefore we fall into these roles. We develop these family rules that allow us to function in these specific roles, and codependency plays a big part in it because we develop that because of the struggle that one person or a few people in the family are struggling with. I hope this is making sense. If anybody has any questions, feel free to chat at any point. So in the addicted family system, we have the victim, which is usually known as your chemical dependent person or the person struggling with whatever struggle, as I mentioned before. The scapegoat is often your problem child. I will define and give you examples in further slides. We have the family hero, which is your caretaker of the family, the responsible one. We have your enabler, that's also, they think that they're protecting the family, but they keep the victim sick. We have your mascot or your family clown, and we have your lost child or forgotten child. So these examples that I'm going to be used focus on one of the parents being the person that is struggling and children taking on these other roles in the family dynamic. These could be flipped. Let's say maybe the chemically dependent person is the child, then the family roles look a little different, but they serve almost the same purpose, right? So the adults can be the scapegoat, an adult can be the mascot. Usually, statistically, it kind of trickles down from the parental units. Let's talk about the chemically dependent person. On the outside, the chemical dependent person might look hostile, manipulative, aggressive, blaming, right? If you had a wife like mine, you would be drinking. If you had a husband like mine, you would be drinking. Charming, they tend to put on a smile. They're the party people, right? They also have very rigid values and very rigid boundaries. On the inside, they still feel shame and guilt and fear and pain and hurt because that dependency is coming from somewhere. Either the shame keeps us using, or maybe we're in too much pain from our mental illness or trauma or whatever it may be in that moment. The chemical dependent person in this situation acts very irresponsibly. Important aspects of the chemical dependent role is emotional detachment from the spouse and the children. My first love, if I'm the chemical dependent person, is with the substance, with the drug, with gambling, with any other process addiction, pornography, sex, shopping. It can also be me reliving my trauma or trauma stuck. I could be focusing on my depression. Sometimes when I am in one kind of bubble, I would say, I neglect everything else in my system, right? So the system has to adapt to my struggles. The first love of the alcoholic or the addict becomes the bottle or the drug, as we just said. And over time, the self-administration of the substance becomes the central activity in this person's life, or gambling, or any other process addiction. Family life diminishes in importance. I don't care anymore, right? I am so submerged in this affair that I'm having that everybody else takes second, third, and fourth role. That's how the family learns to function, right? So we have a role that develops because of that called a scapegoat or the problem child, where on the outside they almost come very close to the chemically addicted individual. They're hostile, they're defiant, they're rule breakers, they're always in trouble. They're the ones that are they do very little right? So they're the ones getting in trouble at school. They might be using also. On the inside, they still feel a rejection from the chemically dependent person. They feel hurt and anger and jealousy because there's another role called the hero that is getting all the attention. The scapegoat often is adopted by the second oldest child. It can be viewed as the alter ego of the family hero. Even though the scapegoat, the problem child, is close emotionally to the hero or the responsible child, they're very different in behaviors. Scapegoats may be involved in fights, theft, or other trouble at school or in the community. They're the juvenile delinquents that the society or community may call. Male scapegoats may become violent, while female scapegoats may express themselves by running away or engaging in promiscuous sexual activity. Both genders are most likely to abuse alcohol or drugs or engage in any other process addiction to light up those reward systems in our brain. Scapegoat roles seem to identify with the chemical dependent parent, especially father, if the father is the addicted person and the son is the problem child, we say his father's son, right? We hear saying that he's just like his father. That's where he learned it from. And it's true, the son models himself after his father. He still hates him and he's still hurt and he still feels rejected. We have, those are your kids that tend to be violent towards opposite sex. Those are the kids that are very rebellious towards authority. They don't like police officers, are the ones that get in trouble, teachers talking back, all that fun stuff that gets you in trouble. This child is referred to as the scapegoat because he or she is the object of the chemically dependent parent's misdirected frustration and rage. So the chemical dependent person or the person struggling still is feeling all these negative emotions, and the target becomes the scapegoat or the problem child. They can be emotionally, physically abused. They express the family's frustration and anger. That's how the problem child maintains family balance, by directing some of the blame from the chemically dependent or struggling parent to himself or herself. This allows the chemical dependent parent to blame someone else for his, her own drinking and drugging, or not being home, or gambling at the bar, or going to the casino, or engaging in sexual acts. It's because of this kid, right? If only you didn't do this, if only you were different, then I wouldn't have to do all these things, which is also manipulation. So far, do we have any scapegoats, or chemically addicted or struggling people? Anybody that would like to disclose, please do so in the chat box. We have the family hero next. The family hero is the good kid, high achiever. They follow rules, they seek approval, and they're very reasonable and responsible. They are the ones that are making breakfast, looking out for their siblings. They still feel guilt, hurt, and inadequacy. And that's how they try to make up for those feelings by these super behaviors. This role is usually adopted by the oldest child. She is the family's high achiever, and such appears quite ambitious and responsible. The child is often admired for excelling under difficult conditions, right? Look at that family. They're struggling. They have all these issues, and this child is on a roll. He or she is going to a good college. He or she is in all these extracurricular activities and is a straight A student, right? So that child is admired because of those so-called difficult conditions. Family hero often takes up parental responsibility that the chemical dependent or the struggling parent gives up, right? So we provide care for younger siblings, we cook, we clean, we get them ready for school, we put them to bed, we do laundry, and so on. We become the parent. We have no time to be a kid anymore. Family heroes frequently do well in academics and athletics. They're the class presidents, honor students, and very high achievers. In adulthood, family heroes tend to develop what we call type A behaviors, which include competitiveness, hostility, very anxious, time urgency, obsession with work, may turn into workaholics. But that's how they reduce tension in the family, by simply doing everything right. If I can minimize the trouble of the family, right? If I do everything just right, that I give hope to the family that something can be good. And then the family can use me as an example as, well, we're not so bad after all, right? We did something right because look, we have an example of this perfect child or this perfect person in the family that is just succeeding highly. Any family heroes, caretakers? Next, we have the enabler. Our enablers are on average, most likely are your spouses of the chemical dependent person or the person that's struggling. It could also be a parent to a struggling kid as well. The enabler is also super responsible, but they're also passive. They're often physically sick from the stress, and they take on the role of like, if it wasn't for me, this family would not survive. Inside, we're still angry and hurt, and we have a lot of guilt because we put our needs to the side, and we have low self-esteem because the chemical dependent person or the person struggling oftentimes blames us for those behaviors. Enabling is a behavior that inadvertently supports the addiction process by helping the alcoholic or the person struggling to avoid natural consequences of irresponsible behavior. My husband gets drunk, oversleeps, his alarm doesn't make it into work. I call in for him and say, he's sick, he is having car trouble, I'm lying now, right? But I'm doing this because in my head is that if my husband loses his job, then we'll financially struggle, will be more strain on me, and therefore I'm protecting us from that from happening. What I don't realize I'm doing is that I am reinforcing this behavior. So the chemically dependent person or the struggling person gets out of bed and says, oh, look, I don't have to go into work. My wife called in for me. Let me go get another beer. or let me go snort a line, or let me go gamble some more. Because I don't have any consequences. In my head, everything is fine. I didn't lose my job. The enabler reduces tension in the family by smoothing things over and making things right. The enabler's dilemma is, do I bail out the alcoholic addict, or do um, I let them be even in a very dangerous situation? It's like a spouse falling over drunk by the front lawn, right? And the wife is like, or the other spouse or the other partner is like, oh my God, what are the neighbors gonna think? Oh, he's just here, she's just laying there on the lawn, right? So I'm gonna drag that person in, and I'm gonna strain my back, and I'm gonna try to keep up with this perfect image, right? That this is everything is fine. To save face, to save myself an embarrassment from having the neighbors talk about this person that's struggling. But once again, that person doesn't experience the natural consequence of those behaviors. We have a comment in the chat that says, I relate to the hero. Brother and mother had addiction. Type A, still achieving. Relating to other roles in more distant family. We hold on to those hero roles. We take them with us because that's what we know. That's what helped us function and get to where we are. So some of these patterns aren't easy to break. They're still doable. We'll talk about that at the end about resources um, and ways that we can achieve those different patterns. It just takes a lot of work and feeling uncomfortable sometimes, which nobody likes. All right, moving on to the mascot or the clown. So he or she is the immature one. They're funny, they make jokes, they're cute, they're hyperactive, they're distracting. We can't say any bad words about the mascot of the family. Inside, they're still struggling with fear, anxiety, and insecurity because they don't know what their role is. So they took on this, like, let's make everybody happy role, so we can balance out the distress, the discomfort, the anger, the disappointment that kind of lingers in the air from the person that's struggling. This is typically adapted by the youngest child in the family. Everyone in the family likes the mascot and is comfortable with having him or her around. Family usually views the mascot as the most fragile and most vulnerable kid in the family, so they all kind of gather around and protect that child. Mascots often act silly and make jokes even at their own expense. Clownish behavior acts as a defense against feelings of anxiety and inadequacy. They often have a need for approval from others. As adults, they're very often appear anxious because we kind of take that fragility with us. We really don't know what to do, so we're just like, I'll be the object of everybody's jokes, even though it doesn't make me feel good on the inside. The child in the mascot role helps maintain family balance by bringing laughter and fun into the house. By clowning around and making jokes, the child brightens the family atmosphere, becoming a counterbalance against the tension that is prevalent and oppressive in dysfunctional families. So all those roles that we have witnessed kind of have a way of balancing the family dysfunction, right? Like, don't look just in this spot. We have all kinds of things going on here in this puzzle that we have to constantly be on our toes about, which gets exhausting after a while. And then we grow up and we are anxious and we have detachment disorders and we struggle in relationships. We struggle with our raising our own kids and so forth. These patterns generationally repeat and repeat themselves. So it's not just one person struggling, it's the entire system that gets affected. So when you are seeking help, when someone in that system says, you know what, I'm tired of being tired and I want this to change, that person becomes a very powerful person in that family system. We have a question. Do you think people can take on the aspects of different roles at different times of their lives? Absolutely. We tend to have more of one that kind of gets stuck to us, or the one that we use the most, but we can absolutely go from the mascot to the hero, especially if, let's say, the hero moves away or something happens to that role and there's like an empty spot. People can shift, right? Because it's all about keeping the balance of the family revolving around this victim, around this person that's struggling. So we have to kind of make sure that all spots are taken. We can't have any vacant, empty holes in that puzzle. Also, sometimes we as ourselves ebb and flow through these different roles. But for the most part, one tends to dominate. We can just adapt different characteristics. Moving on to the lost child or the forgotten child. Even in functional families, the middle children are thought to get less attention than their siblings and seem less certain of their contribution to the family. So the lost child may be a middle child, but may also be the youngest in a dysfunctional family. Chief characteristic of the lost child is seeking to avoid conflict at all costs. This this child is shy, quiet, and they're more attached to things, not people, because people in their lives aren't very reliable because they have things to do, right? Once the victim struggling with something, the other one is trying to protect the victim, and everybody else is just kind of doing their own thing, trying to maintain some sort of balance. Such children tend to feel powerless and are described as very quiet, depressed, isolated, withdrawn, and so on. These children tend to be forgotten as they are very shy. They're followers, not leaders. They're full of anxiety, rejection, and hurt. They engage in a lot of fantasy play. So this is the kid that you see in the corner playing with toys, blocks, have imaginary friends, and they're just oblivious to the things that are happening, right? They're just so involved in fantasy life because that's where they'd rather be. If asked to do something that they fear doing, they may pretend not to that they have not heard you or that they don't understand what you're asking them. These behaviors point to a great deal of insecurity. The lost child is probably the most difficult child in a dysfunctional family to help. First of all, they don't have close friends. They don't have that support system outside of the family dysfunction. They don't have that emotional support. That child is literally by themselves. The behavior is usually not disruptive, so they don't get noticed at school. They don't cause trouble. So the teachers, counselors, people in the community also don't notice the child. Those are the ones that tend to slip through the cracks. As adults, these are the kids that tend to develop mental health problems, anxiety, depression. They're the ones that feel like they can't connect to the world. They have difficulty with transition, taking risks, forming relationships. They struggle with decision making. where to live, what career to have, what school to go. It's just so overwhelming that I'd rather just be here, right where I am right now in my parents' basement sometimes if I have to. Because I don't know. I was never taught to know. I never taught to connect to myself or to anybody else. The lost child has a difficulty with intimate relationships. Um, that's how the child maintains the balance of the family by simply disappearing. This role is to the extreme are the ones that develop suicidal ideations. Those are in extreme cases, those are the kids that think if I killed myself, mom and dad would have one less thing to worry about, right? I'm invisible anyway. Why does that matter? So to keep these roles functioning, if anybody have any questions, feel free to chat. Um, but in order to keep these roles going and to keep that balance of the family dynamics going, there are certain rules we all have to follow. Common rules in addicted or dysfunctional families include don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, don't address issues directly, don't be selfish, do as I say, not as I do. It is not okay to play and don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat, I think, carries in every single rule because we don't talk about any problems in the addicted or dysfunctional family dynamics. We become a household of silence. Problems don't exist. They exist. We just ignore them because we don't talk about it. Because if we talk about it, I'm going to cause distress. If I cause distress, then the victim is going to use that as a reason to continue in those dysfunctional behaviors or addiction. So we don't talk about any problems. Everything is fine. As we go through these common rules, once again, feel free to put in the chat any rules that you can identify with, or if you notice any rules in your household. The next rule is don't trust. The dysfunction of the family discourage honest and consistent behavior. So there's no basis for trust. I can't trust mom because she doesn't know what to do. I can't trust dad because he's unpredictable. I can't trust my sister or my brother because they're either too focused on being the responsible, getting straight A's person, or too busy getting in trouble, or just ignoring the world. So I don't know. There's no trust in this family. There's no basis for trust to even build. Because in order to trust, there must be a feeling of safety. And that is the one thing that we don't have in a dysfunctional family is that we don't have safety. We only have roles that we try to balance emotionally ourselves to survive. Don't feel because there's no trust, expression of negative feelings increases fear that the individual or family will go out of control. And remember, we cannot let this family go out of control. So we express happy feelings only. Anger, disappointment, and etc. Exist, but we stuff it down inside of us. The children in the family learn only happy feelings are recognized as appropriate. You tell me you're angry, I might put you in timeout because nobody has time to deal with your anger problems. You tell me you're happy, that means everybody's playing their role correctly. That means everybody's doing their job they've been assigned to. And that means we continue to function this way. Don't address issues directly. We communicate only indirectly. Always we use those absolutes, right? No middle ground exists. Always be strong, always be good, always be perfect. These unrealistic roles and expectations that we take on. Love in the family because becomes dependent on not what we do, sorry, love is dependent on what we do, not who we are, right? So if I do good, if I'm strong, if I'm responsible, if I perfect the role of this family, the one that I was assigned to, then I feel loved. And if not, I am the one that is used as a reason why this family is dysfunctioning. Don't be selfish. Guilt about taking care of yourself before others. You're supposed to take care of this family before you think about yourself. If I don't take care of you first, then I feel guilty. What kind of family member am I to let you do this? Why am I gonna go take a bath or a walk and tell you that I will come and handle a situation in an hour, and that I am guilty because how dare I? I'm supposed to give you that attention or help you or put your needs ahead of mine because that's what family does. That's what dysfunctional family does. Do as I say, not as I do. Establish as a foundation of distrust again, right? So we learn by example. We repeat the behaviors that we see. And in this case, we're saying, no, don't do what I do. Do as I say, right? So I'm over here smoking. Don't you dare you smoke, right? So it just causes more confusion and distrust. It is not okay to play. I don't care how old you are, because life becomes painful and difficult and serious very fast. We don't have time for this. We have to work. We have to function. We have to protect this family. And we have to make sure no one feels any consequences. And don't rock the boat in any of these rules, because if you rock the boat, you change family roles. And if I change family roles, or if I don't or if I don't play the role appropriately, then change could happen. And change is anxiety provoking, and change is scary. And then we don't know what to do anymore, right? At least in these roles that we have established, I know each person's role, I know each person's behavior, and nothing becomes surprising to me. These roles that we discussed are inflexible. They don't promote change. They don't promote healthy development. They don't promote. So when we want to change those family roles, first we have to change the rules, right? We start talking about what the actual problem is. We take a risk to trust someone, even if it's one person that we pick to trust. Develop that safety, even if it's a small corner, even if it's a teacher, a neighbor, one person to trust. We start talking about our feelings. We invite them as friends, even though that's going to be so uncomfortable in the beginning, right? You're valid by what you feel, right? There's a reason why you feel this way. We start addressing issues directly, even though we might be pushed away from the family. We might be given the silent treatment, right? How dare you speak to me this way all of a sudden? Doesn't mean we don't continue with that new rule. We do become selfish. We start building boundaries. We say, you know what? I'm going to come back to the situation after my walk because I need this walk to feel better for myself. Do become a good, positive mentor for yourself if you have to, for someone younger than you, right? Become a role model. It is okay to play. I don't care how old you are. It is okay to play. We become parents, we become adults, we become career people. We become over involved in everything in our lives. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to go shoot some basketball. For the next 15 minutes, I'm going to paint. For the next 15 minutes, I'm going to take a bubble bath. For the next 15 minutes, I don't know, I'm going to go play with the dog outside. It's okay to play. And it's okay to rock the boat, because the more we rock the boat, the more we rock these rules, the more we challenge some of these behaviors, change will happen. That's how we achieve change. Nobody achieved change by not rocking the boat, right? Change is uncomfortable, so we sit with it. People will test your boundaries. Your family members, your family system will try to get you back into where you were. So things on the outside tend to get worse before they get better, but they do get better if you stay consistent and persistent and have patience. You have to remember that you are undoing some of the strongest core beliefs of the entire system, even sometimes generational systems. So patience becomes really, really important. Any questions, comments so far? Anything that anybody needs clarification on? Okay. We have a comment. Such good information. Thank you. So, what role does codependency have in any of what we're talking about? By definition, codependency is an emotional and behavioral condition that affects an individual's ability to have a healthy, mutually satisfying relationship. It is also known as a relationship addiction because people with codependency often form or maintain relationships that are one-sided, emotionally destructive, and or abusive. Codependency could be your struggle. Codependency is developed because of our certain roles that we take in dysfunctional family. Codependency can sometimes cause a dysfunctional family system. What does it look like? It is an exaggerated sense of responsibility for the actions of others. I am responsible for you if I am codependent. I confuse love and pity with the tendency to love people they can pity and rescue, right? I need to be useful in your life. That's how I feel love. I have a tendency to do more than their share at all times. I will do everything. I will become hurt when people don't recognize what I do. How dare you not acknowledge all my efforts? Unhealthy dependence on relationships. The codependent will do anything to hold on to a relationship to avoid the feeling of abandonment. I will take the abuse. I will take the disrespect. I will take the cheating. I will take the hurt as long as you don't leave me, right? I am just so attached to this relationship, even if it's unhealthy, even if it's one-sided. There's an extreme need for approval and recognition. I don't know, do cartwheels, stand on my hands if I have to for you to tell me that you approve and you see me. I feel guilty if I assert myself, if I say something positive about myself, or if I ask for something. I need to control others because if I don't, you all can't function without me, or at least in my head, that's what I think. There's lack of trust in self or others. There's always mistrust in every dysfunctional system. Difficulty identifying feelings. I don't know what feelings are. I don't know what my feelings look like because my feelings are dependent on your feelings. We have rigidity. It's difficult to adjust to change. Life transitions are very, very difficult for a codependent individual. Problems with intimacy boundaries. What boundaries? They don't exist. I'm constantly angry. I'm constantly lying and dishonest because I have to please and appease you. So I will, if lying and being dishonest is the way to do it, guess what I'm going to do? Poor communication. I don't know what good communication looks like because I have those horse blinders on and it's all about you. And I have an extremely difficult time making decisions because I can't. It's whatever you want is what I want. No wonder I'm angry all the time, right? I hope someone thought that because that's what I thought. So, do you think that you might have some signs of codependency? This is a questionnaire typically asked to Assess or rule out codependent characteristics or behaviors. I will go through these questions. The more yes you answer to, if you're at home, if you're by a piece of paper and a pen, write them down, the yes questions only. If you're listening, count them in your head, the more yes you come up with. Or you maybe see some of these signs of codependency in your family members, in your children, in your spouses, in your parents, right? The more yeses, that's a good sign that there is codependency going on. Do you keep quiet to avoid arguments? Are you always worried about others' opinions of you? Have you ever lived with someone with an alcohol or drug problem? Have you ever lived with someone who hits or belittles you? Are the opinions of others more important than your own? Do you have difficulty adjusting to changes at work or home? Do you feel rejected when significant others spend time with friends? Do you doubt your ability to be who you want to be? Are you uncomfortable expressing your true feelings to others? Have you ever felt inadequate? Do you feel like a bad person when you make a mistake? Do you have difficulty taking compliments or gifts? Do you feel humiliation when your child or spouse makes a mistake? Do you think people in your life would go downhill without your constant efforts? Do you frequently wish someone could help you get things done? Do you have difficulty talking to people in authority, such as the police or your boss? Are you confused about who you are or where you are going with your life? Do you have trouble saying no when asked for help? That's a big one. Do you have trouble asking for help? Do you have so many things going on at once that you can't do justice to any of them? If you identify with several of these symptoms, are dissatisfied with yourself or your relationship, this is where we recommend seeking professional help. And we'll give you resources and contact information at the end. Any questions so far? Alrighty. So I have some examples because there's a lot of times that people that in my profession ask, right? If I really, maybe I just care for that person deeply, right? So I want to help them. I want to make their lives better. I want to be that positive source in that individual's life. And it could be, but the difference is that wanting to help be their support in a relationship is a two-way street in any relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a child-parent relationship, whether it's a friendship, um, whether it's a parent-child relationship, right? Whether it's from parent to child, whether it's child to parent, doesn't matter. It has to be a two-way street. So the difference between depending on another person, which can be a positive and desirable trait, codependency, which is harmful. So an example of a depending on another person, two people rely on each other for support and love, right? Both individuals find value in the relationship. In a codependent relationship, one person feels worthless unless they are needed, right, by the other person. If I don't feel needed by you, If I don't make drastic sacrifices for you, that means I am worthless. I am unloved. That's not healthy. Dependent, both parties make their relationship a priority, but can also find joy in outside interests, other friends, and hobbies. Hey, honey, I'm gonna go play basketball with the guys. Hey, honey, I'm gonna go play pickleball. Hey, honey, I have book club this weekend. Or let's figure out childcare. Whatever it is, right? Whatever the hobby. Hey, mom and dad, I would love to have dinner with you. Today I'm gonna have dinner at my best friend's house, right? Um, so I prioritize this relationship. I also have joy outside of it. In a codependent relationship, one person has no personal identity, interest, or values outside of their codependent relationship. My sole focus is this relationship, your interests. Um, you go play basketball, I sit and wait for you to come back. And if you don't come back right away, or even if you go to basketball, I feel rejected. You don't want to spend time with me. That's not healthy. Dependent. Both people can express their emotions and needs and find ways to make their relationship beneficial for both of them. In a codependent relationship, one person feels that their desires and needs are unimportant and will not express them. Because why? It's all about the other person. It's all about you. So a lot of parents argue with me on this one, right? Because I'm a parent, right? My kids' needs take priority over my needs in certain situations. Sure. Where's the balance? Because a happy parent has happy kids. Anxious parents have anxious kids. Depressed parents have depressed kids. Codependent parents have codependent kids that continue to form those codependent relationships, that continue to engage in unhealthy relationships. So yes, in certain situations, kids' needs take priority. However, we balance it out and we find time for our needs as well. So it's okay to say no to your kids. And kids, it's okay to say no to your parents. Completely healthy. One thing to remember that a codependent person will neglect important areas of their lives to please the other person, right? Whether it's in a friendship, in a romantic relationship, in a parental-child relationship. One person doesn't matter. It's all about the other person. If you notice that in your kids, if you notice that in yourself, if you notice that in your spouse, in your own parents, that should raise flags to say, hey, something's up here. You know, why is it so difficult for me to put my needs first? How do we do it? We build self-esteem. We go to therapy, we go to support groups that are here on the bottom of the slide. We improve our boundaries. We learn to say no and we stick with it. And even though it's your entire body screams of how uncomfortable it is, we can still sit with it because it's still okay because we're trying to achieve something that we haven't done so, and it could be we haven't done so all our lives. And encouraging self-care. Self-care is the easiest baby step to start doing in overcoming codependency and putting your needs first, because we can start with 15 minutes a day. We can start with a bubble bath, a meditation, a walk. It's nice outside. Go sit in the backyard, bird watch, people watch. Something that you find some joy or pleasure. And if I start with 15 minutes a day, heck, start 15 minutes every other day. But it becomes easier and more comfortable. And now I'm like, yeah, I deserve these 15 minutes. And then maybe on Sunday, I deserve an hour of self-care, right? Especially if I am the primary caregiver, right? That's how we gain that self-validation. That's how we gain that support, right? That's why we start small changes. The idea of starting small is very doable, was the comment. Yes. Easiest way to start. One skill that I want to teach everyone with the last few minutes that we have is, this is part of our assertive communication. Those I statements. I feel blank because blank, I need blank. This is how we communicate a boundary. This is how we communicate a feeling. This is how we communicate our need in that moment. We validate the other person. Validating is literally repeating what you heard. Hey, Bob, I just heard you say blah, blah, blah. Repeat what Bob just said to you. Remember, just because we validate doesn't mean that we are agreeing. I can say, I hear that you are angry with me. And notice the word and written here on the bottom of that slide. Do not use the word but. No buts allowed. Because if we say but after a positive statement, we negate everything that we just said. It's the same as not even saying it. So we don't use the word buts. We use the word and. Challenge yourselves. Use every time you instinctively want to use the word but, try to catch yourself and replace it with the word and. You'd be surprised how many times throughout the day we use the word but. Anyway, Bob, I hear that you're angry with me because I didn't take out the garbage last night. And I disagree. That wasn't our deal. Joe was supposed to take it out yesterday, not me. See? No conflict, no fight. I'm standing my boundary. I disagreed in a respectful manner. The key to this, the biggest mistake that I hear is, I feel like you're not listening to me. Wrong. Just because you start a statement with I feel doesn't mean you're saying it correctly. I feel what? After the word I feel needs to be a feeling word. I feel upset. I feel happy. I feel angry. I feel joy when you listen to me. Because why? What is exactly happening in this moment that is causing me to feel this way? And what do you need right now? The need part, I need blank, becomes very important because it has to be specific. It cannot be broad terminology where it's I need respect. What does respect look like to you? I need you to look me in the eye when I'm talking to you. Because when we use broad terminology, everybody is going to interpret their own way, right? We're going to have different definitions and different ways of doing it. So to make it clear and specific, I'm going to tell you exactly what I need. Hey, Bob, I need you to go take out the garbage right now, right? I feel disappointed because we agreed last night that you were going to take out the garbage and the garbage isn't taken out yet. I need you to go. Please do it right now. All right? Any questions so far? If you can take a screenshot of a screensaver of this, write it down. If you're calling in, you are welcome to. I think we're able to give you these slides or this presentation, from what I understand. That if you take anything out of this, take this with you. You can communicate with your kids like this, with your parents, with your bosses, with your coworkers, with your spouses. Kids can communicate like this to our parents. This is a skill that we teach here in our program, and it's very, very beneficial in forming boundaries, in challenging some of these family roles that we talked about, in challenging those family rules that might be existing in your families, and develop and challenging codependency, right? Becoming more dependent, becoming more validating ourselves more. Resources, you're not alone struggling in this. There's a bunch of people that struggle with family roles, addicted, dysfunctional family roles, family rules, unhelpful family rules, codependency. Al-Anon.org is for family members, parents, spouses of if you have a family member struggling with addiction. Alateen is for adolescents. Alateen.org is for adolescents that have parents that struggle with addiction. HopeDuPage.org, our resource is a resource. CODA for your codependent individuals. Go to a CODA meeting. You will feel support. You will feel encouragement. It will make it easier to form boundaries. Smart Families and Friends, you can find meetings mostly virtual on smartrecovery.org. Therapy, always a small step to start is therapy and ask for help. And that's me. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Christine if nobody has any questions to wrap this up.
Great. Thank you, Rasa. It was an excellent presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat box for question and answers. If you do not have a question at this moment, but have one later this evening or a few days from now, you can always email those questions to lindenoaksmarketing@ehealth.org. Again, that's lindenoaksmarketing@ehealth.org, and we can have Rasa answer those questions, and we can email those back to you, the answers. I will be opening up the poll here in just a moment. And then again, as a reminder, we have the chat box to put your questions and answers in. We also have, as a reminder, we have a full continuum of care. We do the assessments again for adults 12 through 18, along with adults 18 years and older. We have all levels of care. We have our outpatient therapy, medication management, our hospital-based inpatient and day programs. Again, here's all of our locations. So we have many locations in this region that even extend a little bit further with services that we provide with the full continuum. Again, here's the take a 5-minute aware to test or gauge your mental health. This is on our ehealth.org website. You can go ahead and scan the QR code and it'll take you directly to that page. You or someone you know is feeling anxious or depressed. Again, mental health conditions are highly treatable, but many do not seek treatment. For support and treatment, therapy resources, and or information for mental health assessment, you can call our 24/7 hotline at 630-305-5027, or you can complete an online behavioral health form by scanning that QR code to the left. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up our polling. Again, the polling will be only open for 5 minutes. Do your best to fill it out. We would love to hear, your thoughts about today's presentation, but also about presentations you may want to hear about in the future. Again, we read every single one of these, so we'd love to have your feedback. We appreciate you taking the time to come out and listen to us tonight. We will be offering these on a monthly basis. So our next one is next month. That one, again, is going to be on hard to swallow, medication safety, and importance to adhering. Our speaker will be Sam Epley, and that is Wednesday, July 19th. Again, it's from 6:30 to 7:30.